to go ahead and introduce Haley, a graduate from 2018, who's here today to be with all of us. How many of you have dealt with one of those words up on the screen? Raise your hand. Raise it high. How many of you have a friend or a family member that have dealt with one of those words up on the screen? Keep your hands up. How many of you have ever in your life known someone that has dealt with one of these words? Keep them up. Now look around the room. This is what we're here to talk about today. Some of you may know who I am. For those of you who don't, my name is Haley Epstein. I graduated from Deerfield High School in 2018. Some of you may have also already heard my talk. Some of you have maybe seen it online. But the cool thing about my talk is that it's about my story. And my story is always changing. So today, I'm here to tell you my story and share with you some things that you may not know about me and some things that other people may not know about me. I'm here as a peer, a friend, a sister, a daughter, someone that you can relate to, and hopefully let you know that it's okay to not be okay. Whenever I'm asked to describe my childhood, I always describe it as two completely different people. This was me all the time. I was always happy. I was always making people laugh. I was very outgoing. I sang the talent show by myself in kindergarten. I was the only girl on my t-ball team. I played every sport. This was me all the time. If you were in my class in first grade, you knew the Haley who couldn't place windows in the classroom because if I saw a cloud outside, I'd have an anxiety attack. Or maybe you knew the Haley who threw up every single time she got on the bus because she was so anxious. Or maybe you knew the Haley who cried every time her mom left her at school until third grade. But no one else knew this Haley because this is what I looked like all the time. I've had anxiety since I was very, very young. I've seen a therapist since I was 5 years old. Growing up, anxiety was a norm in my life. My mom always called me a worrier, and that was kind of how I lived every day. This specific slide in my presentation wasn't in it until about the third time I gave my talk. It is one of the biggest parts of my life, yet one of the absolute last things I tell people about myself, and that is that I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 9 years old, and it is still to this day one of the last things that I tend to tell people. It plays an extremely large role in my mental health journey. In 5th grade, I went to sleepaway camp for the first time. I made it a whole 4 days before they sent me home. And growing up, I had always been very manipulative when it came to my anxiety. I wanted to avoid any situation that might make me anxious, and I knew the difference between my mental health and my physical health. And I knew that no one could see my mental health and how bad I was struggling, so if something was wrong with my physical health, then I would be able to get the help that I needed. I told the people at camp that I wasn't going to take care of my diabetes. And I told them that I felt so sick physically because I knew if I told them I was homesick or that I was anxious, I would have to stay there. Believe it or not, they sent me home within 5 days. I came home and everything was fine again. I know, I look really, really cute. This was the first day of middle school. I was not nervous at all for middle school. All my friends were freaking out. I was so excited to be on comms. I was excited to try out for basketball. I was excited to go to school with my friends from the other elementary school. All my friends were freaking out, and I could not be more excited. This was the first day of 6th grade. I remember it like it was yesterday. I walked in, I gave my friend Zach a high five in his locker. I got to my locker, dropped my backpack, and said, I am not okay. I ran to the nurse, left my backpack in my locker, and I ran in and I said, I need to call my mom, I need to go home. And she said, are you nauseous? Do you feel like you're going to throw up? Do you have a stomach ache? And I said, no, I need to go home, I'm not okay. I was in the middle of an anxiety attack, and what most people don't know is that I didn't go to a single one of my classes in 6th grade until the second week of school. I spent all day, every day, with the school social worker crying because I didn't want to be at school. When you get to middle school, you want to be cool, you want to be popular, you want to be outgoing. Was I supposed to tell my friends, my mom, in 6th grade, and that's why I was crying every day? After the first week of school, I was hospitalized for the first time for my anxiety. I went to the hospital. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and I got put on medication for the first time in my life when I was 11. I came back to school after that weekend, and my friends asked where I was. They said, "Why are you in the hospital? What's going on?" I said, "Oh, my diabetes acting up." I said, "You know, my numbers are out of whack, and that's why I had to go." Did not mention the fact that I was anxious. Did not mention the fact that I was now being put on medication. Instead, I focused on a physical illness because that is so much easier to explain to people than what's going on in my head. The medication helped a lot, but it didn't fix everything. I didn't go to Springfield in 6th grade because I had strep throat. I didn't go to DC in 8th grade because I didn't find a room on time. I was avoiding all these situations that I knew I would be anxious in, and I was using my physical health as an excuse rather than telling people about what was really going on. I got to high school, and high school was great. I had lots of friends. I was on dance company, I played basketball, I was editor of yearbook. I loved high school, and my anxiety was pretty stable throughout the course of high school. Junior year rolled around, and I had found out that the medication I had been on since 6th grade had a large side effect of weight gain. Now, with a very large portion of my anxiety coming from body image and self-esteem issues, I said, absolutely not, I'm not taking this medication anymore. I talked with my doctors, and I talked to my parents, and I ended up going off of my medication. It wasn't really an issue until about the summer going into my senior year. I started to feel kind of off. I didn't feel like happy Haley. I didn't want to hang out with my friends that much. I wanted to sleep all the time, but I'm someone who likes to do things on their own. So I didn't tell anyone because I figured, you know what, I'll just figure it out. This was my birthday senior year. My birthday was on the homecoming football game and pep rally. I woke up, my friends came over with balloons and cupcakes. I went to the homecoming football game and the whole student section sang happy birthday to me. I went to homecoming the next day. It was one of the best birthdays I've ever had. I posted that picture of me on Instagram on Friday. Sunday night, I went into treatment for suicidal ideation. No one had any idea that I was feeling this way because this is what I looked like all the time. I remember driving home from dance on Sunday night, and I was in the car with my friend, and she was talking to me, and all I thought was, I'm not okay, I need to go to the hospital. I was at a point now where I was so sick, not only mentally, but physically, that I knew I needed help. I went home, I woke up my mom, and I had one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had in my life. And I started it by telling her that my diabetes was out of control. Did not mention the fact that I wanted to hurt myself. Did not mention the fact that I didn't want to be alive. Instead, I told her my diabetes is not okay. I haven't been taking care of myself physically, and that's why I need to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital. I was open about everything that was going on. I had a bunch of psych evals, and I entered treatment for the first time in my life. I went to this lovely building in Northbrook. I was out of school for about a month, and when I was out of school and my friends and family started to find out what was going on, they felt so much guilt for not knowing. The number one thing I tried to avoid throughout this entire process is making people worried. I'm someone who likes to take care of other people and not have other people take care of me. That being said, because they were so worried about me, it just made me want to fake it even more. I was going to treatment every single day, but I wasn't being honest about what was actually going on. I was going through the motions. I wanted to get back to normal life so bad. I wanted to get back to dance. I wanted to get back to going out with my friends. I hated not being normal Haley. I went back to school 5 weeks later, and things didn't get too much better. These are things I said every day. I just don't want to wake up. I've been harming myself for 2 months and haven't told anyone. I can't stop thinking about suicide. I haven't eaten in 3 days, but I don't have an eating disorder. All of these things I said in my head every day, never once said them out loud. Why would I scare the people closest to me? I'm trying to protect them, right? Because if on the outside I look like I'm happy, why would I worry them and tell them these things? I was so angry I felt this way. I was so frustrated with myself. I had friends, I had a great family, I had a roof over my head, I had a plate of food on the table. Why was I depressed when there are people out there that have so much worse than me? I didn't tell anyone that things were getting worse, and then I began to self-harm for the first time. Self-harm is one of those words that you hold your breath when you hear. You get super uncomfortable when someone says it, and when someone tells you that they've done it, you begin to look at them differently. I had never understood why people would ever do this. And if you had told me that I would have ever done this in my life, I would have said you were absolutely crazy. At this point in my life, I was no longer Haley, and depression became my identity. I was someone who was depressed. I wasn't Haley anymore. That being said, people who are depressed do these things, right? So that's what I should be doing, because I'm not Haley, I'm someone that's depressed. I wore sweatshirts to dance class every single day. I was sweating like no other, and when people asked why I was wearing sweatshirts, I would say, oh, I just like to sweat a lot more when I dance, it's no big deal. Everything in my life became so much harder, and when I first opened up to people, these were the responses I got. Just get out of bed, cheer up. I don't know why you're acting this way, you have such a good life. My dad used to say this one, I miss normal Haley. My mom used to say this one to me before school, it's like you're choosing when to be depressed and when to be okay. My friends and family didn't say these things because they were ignorant or because they were mean. They said these things because they didn't understand what was going on, and they couldn't understand what was going on. They wanted to fix it themselves so badly, and they just couldn't. At this point, I also decided that I thought I wanted to go back to treatment. I brought it up to my doctors and my parents, and the first thing they said is, you're avoiding school. That's why you want to go back to treatment. At this point in my life, I had also finally accepted the fact that I had an eating disorder. That being said, after very long conversations with my doctors and my parents, I decided to go back to treatment for not only anxiety and depression, but my eating disorder as well. I was there for 3 months, and it absolutely changed my life. I drove to the city every single day from 9:30 to 6:30, and I'd come back just in time for dance company every single day. No one had any idea where I was all day, but I was making it to dance company on time. When I was in treatment, I also had decided that I wanted a tattoo. My aunt was always covered in them, and I knew growing up I wanted one because they looked cool, but I never knew what I wanted. And in treatment, I heard about Project Semicolon. Project Semicolon is a suicide prevention movement. It represents when an author has the option to end their sentence, but they choose to keep going. The author is you, the sentence is your life. I thought it was amazing, and I decided that I really wanted it. At this point in my life, I had also decided that I was not going to college anymore. I told my mom, I miss way too much school, no college is going to accept me, I dropped so many of my classes, I'm not applying. She said, well, if you want that tattoo, you're applying to college. I applied to college February 1st, and I got my tattoo February 3rd. I posted this picture on Instagram of my tattoo, and I had a whole lot of anxiety leading up to it. I wondered what people were going to say, what people were going to think. There were rumors about where I had been, but the only people who really knew where I was were my close friends. This was the first time I opened up about what had been going on. The comment on the picture was talking about Project Semicolon and what it means. And everyone was saying, Haley Epstein? No way. You're crazy. There's no way that someone like her would go through something like this. She's always smiling. What are you talking about? When I heard these reactions is when I realized that this is something that needs to be talked about. Back in November of my senior year, I auditioned a piece for dance company by 1-800 by Logic, and at the time of my audition, I was in treatment. I hinted at the fact that my dance was about me, but I focused more so on the fact that it was a social issue going on. Before they went on stage, I sat my dancers down, some of them being in this room today, and I told them my story. We sat in a circle in the gym, and all 13 of us were crying as I told my story. None of my dancers were crying because they felt bad for me or because they pitied me. They were crying because 11 out of those 13 spoke out and said that they were dealing with something that I had talked about in my story. I had one girl stay back, and she couldn't stop crying. And I said, what's going on? Why are you so upset? What can I do? And she said, I'm going through this right now, and I haven't told anyone, and I need help. She ended up going to treatment, and she goes to school now and is doing amazing. But if I hadn't spoken out and told her what was going on with me, she would have never gotten the help that she needed. It was one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had. I realized that I wasn't the only one dealing with these things. It was every single person around me. It's the person that sits behind you in math. It's your brother, it's your sister, it's your best friend, your lab partner, the person sitting next to you right now. Every single person in this room has, in the past, present, future, will deal with something like this, or know someone that has dealt with something like this. But you would have no idea because no one talks about it ever. Obviously, since I applied to school, I go to school. Last year, I entered my freshman year in Madison, Wisconsin, and I had a very smooth transition. I was not expecting that at all, and I transitioned a lot smoother than I thought I would. I struggled with the typical things that every college student does. It's hard to adjust to living in a new place, making new friends, going to new classes, but I had the skills that I needed to conquer all of these struggles. Second semester rolled around my freshman year, and I started to feel off. I knew something wasn't right, I didn't know exactly what, but Madison's only 2 hours away, so I hopped on a bus and came home and made an appointment with my doctor. I saw my psychiatrist, and I was diagnosed as bipolar for the first time. Bipolar. It's another one of those words that you get super uncomfortable when you hear. You hold your breath, and when someone tells you that they are, you think they're crazy. My doctor put it into perspective for me because I thought it was insane, and she called it a cyclical depression. She made it make a lot more sense in my head and a whole lot less scary than that stigmatized word of bipolar. I got put on all new medication, I went back to school, and I finished out my first year in Madison. 1 year ago today, I spoke for the first time in this room to the previous junior class. Since then, I've had the amazing opportunities of speaking at so many other schools, camps, walks, benefits, to groups of teachers, groups of parents. It's been amazing, and I feel very, very fortunate to have this opportunity. I started the It's Okay to Not Be Okay movement. The It's Okay to Not Be Okay movement is an online platform for people to share their stories of mental health. I've had people send in songs, I've had people send in videos, I've had people send in pictures, Instagram posts, anything, and inspire others to do the same. I have a whole line of apparel that when I sell, all of the proceeds go to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And giving this talk has completely changed my life. For the past year, I've been so fortunate to give these talks, yet the past 3 months have been some of the most difficult months I have ever experienced in my life. Like I said, the cool thing about my presentation is that it's about my story, and my story is always changing. So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. I went back to school in August, and immediately posted these pictures of my room on Instagram, because why would I not? I worked so hard on them, and I think they look pretty freaking cool. I went out the first night I was there, and I went to a bar with my friends, and the second I got there, immediately shut down. I said I need to go back to my room, ran back to my apartment, locked myself in my room, and bawled my eyes out. I made it about 2 weeks at school, and my parents drove up, packed me up, and I was back home in Deerfield. Recently, I have discovered these things in life called the supposed tos. In high school, it's the GPA you're supposed to get, the friends you're supposed to be friends with, the classes you're supposed to sign up for, the ACT score you're supposed to get for the college you're supposed to go to, and the same thing applies to college. You're supposed to do really well in every single one of your classes, no matter how hard they are. You're supposed to make 1 million friends and love every single one of them. You're also supposed to never miss home and never want to come home. Yes, I was anxious and scared to come home from school in August. But more than anything, I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed that I couldn't do these supposed tos that everyone else was doing. I didn't understand why it was so hard for me if they were all things that I loved to do. I came home, and I immediately started telling everyone that I was transferring to Loyola. I needed a plan. I couldn't tell people I was coming home because I wasn't okay. I had to give them a reason and tell them what I was doing now. Because that's another supposed to growing up around here. You're supposed to go to a 4-year school right out of high school, and you're supposed to always be in school and never take time off, right? I needed a plan, and that's what I began to tell everyone. The second I got home, it immediately felt like senior year all over again. I was yelling at my parents, refusing to get out of bed. My medication wasn't working. I was going to see my therapist 3 times a week, and I was still giving presentations throughout this entire time. One of the things I pride myself on is the fact that I'm open and completely honest with you guys every single time I give these talks. I never hide anything, yet while I was being open, I wasn't necessarily talking about something that needs to be talked about, and that is the fact that I went back to treatment. I wasn't ready to talk about it for the past few months. It's something that I had a boundary around, and something I wasn't ready to share until now. I did not want to go back to treatment at all. I did not want to go. My therapist suggested it, and I said, no way. I've been there. I don't know what more I could learn. Why would I go back? Then I gave a talk at a camp retreat, and I had a girl come up to me, and she said, I went into treatment my sophomore year of high school, and I feel like I'm relapsing. And she said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I feel like I should go back to treatment, but I don't really want to. I felt like I was looking in the mirror. I said the same thing, and I looked at her, and I thought to myself, what would I tell this girl to do? Because she's literally me. I told her that it's okay to ask for help, a second, third, fourth, fifth, as many times as you need. I told her to use the supports that she had around her, and I told her that it was okay to not be okay in that moment. The first time I went to treatment, it was all about cracking open the shell. I didn't talk to anyone about anything. The second time I went back, it was really about figuring out who I am and what I'm doing in life. I was in treatment for 2 months, and now I plan to go back to school in about 10 days. Not yet, almost there. We're so close. What makes my presentation different than most mental health presentations is the fact that I emphasize that healing is not linear. Obviously, you always get better. That's something that I incredibly stress and do believe in. Things will get better, but that does not mean that they always get better. Things don't always get worse. Throughout the course of your life, you're going to have things that you need to deal with. Whether you've dealt with it in your past, your present, or your future, this is an issue that is within our entire society and every single human being deals with. While I'm proud of the past 3 months and everything I've accomplished, that does not mean I'm a master at it, and that does not mean that I'm not nervous as hell to go back to school in 10 days. Anxiety, depression, eating disorders, these aren't things you check off a list. They're things that you get help with and you learn to deal with throughout the course of your life. These supposed to's that we feel throughout our entire lifetime mean absolutely nothing. You're not alone. Every single person in this room has something that they deal with. Every single one of us. So now you're looking at me, and you're saying, okay, great, Haley, you told us your story. Now what? What am I supposed to do? Everyone deals with this, but how can I change this? Start the conversation. I'm not asking you to go give a presentation in front of 500 kids at your former high school, but go talk to your mom. When your friend asks how your day was, don't tell them that you did bad on your math test. Tell them that you were feeling a little down that day. Have a conversation. Check in with the people around you. Ask them how they're doing. It's okay to speak out and share your story, and it's okay to not be okay. Thank you.